Welcome to her Fireside Stories, where life's most shocking truths unfold in the dancing shadows of our flame. Tonight I bring you the split second at Snake Spine Pass. A mother trapped in a speeding RV with cut brake lines and a son whose betrayal runs deeper than the gorge below them. Picture this an isolated mountain road, a vehicle gaining deadly momentum, and the whispered revelation that changes everything in the final moments before impact. What would make a son plot his own mother's death? And what impossible choice must she make with seconds left to live? This isn't just another family drama. It's a true story of calculated betrayal, where love and survival collide at 70 miles per hour. The ending, it will leave you questioning how well you know those closest to you. I'm your host, Clara, sharing stories from our collective heart. Let me know where you're listening from in the comments. The fire is warm and your seat is waiting. Evelyn Grant stepped onto her porch in Silver Ridge, California, inhaling the crisp scent of pine carried by the early sun. At 68, she found these quiet mornings both soothing and familiar. Her cabin faced the immense shape of Snake Spine Pass, an infamous road with a 6,000-foot descent, hairpin switchbacks, and a single sand escape ramp. Cradling a cup of coffee, she surveyed the birdhouse she'd been repairing, its chipped paint and loose nails, a gentle reminder that anything with care might be kept sturdy. Below the porch, her German Shepherd mix. Scout sniffed excitedly at the undergrowth, likely chasing the ghosts of squirrels. She chuckled, recalling how Scout had once cornered a raccoon in her garden, his loyalty fierce even in mundane moments. Evelyn's steady life as a widowed former trauma nurse revolved around small tasks, like these: fixing, nurturing, hoping. She missed her husband at times, but found her rhythms: early coffee, a few quiet chores, and maybe a visit to her longtime neighbor, Jack Grizzly Evans. If something needed a skilled hand, Jack, a retired Marine Scout sniper, aged 72, lived near enough to wave at from across a clearing. He was famous for methodical preparedness. If a chore was to be done, he did it with precision. Their friendship was anchored by respect, a kind of unspoken mutual watchfulness in this rugged terrain. Evelyn's phone buzzed, reminding her to check an appointment in town. Glancing back at Snake Spine's winding silhouettes, she shook her head as if dismissing an uneasy feeling that had crept in, a sense of tension, or foreshadowing she couldn't quite name. Stepping down, she called to Scout, who bounded onto the porch, eyes bright with an eager loyalty. She patted his head. "Let's get going," she murmured, taking one last look at the horizon. The day was new, the air bracing, and her heart was calm. For the moment, it all felt simple, though she had no idea that a shiny RV and a hidden plot would soon shatter that peace. Midday brought an unexpected crunch of tires on gravel. A 30-foot Class C RV rolled into Evelyn's driveway, gleaming under the sunlight like a visiting titan. Her son, Lucas Grant, hopped out first, his lean form weighed by an invisible burden of debt and guilt. Behind him came Harper Grant, his wife, with a flawless grin and an almost theatrical air of excitement. She announced they'd come to show off their test drive for a future family road trip, gesturing like a salesperson introducing the grand prize on a game show. Evelyn forced a smile. She hadn't seen Lucas in months, and the tension on his face felt heartbreaking. Even so, she offered a warm greeting, hugging him gently, noting how he lingered in her arms, as if seeking comfort. Harper interrupted, flashing a slip of sonogram paper. "We're expanding," she said cheerfully, wiggling the ultrasound image under Evelyn's gaze. Confusion mingled with joy. Evelyn hadn't heard any news of a pregnancy yet. Harper beamed with surety. Inside the RV, Harper's chatter filled the cramped space with talk of a mobile business. She claimed that with some financial backing, they could roam the country and earn money as they went. Lucas sat quietly, eyes darting to the plush interior, occasionally meeting Evelyn's concerned look. At one point, Evelyn brought up a sweet childhood memory, Lucas's Boy Scout badge from a camping trip long ago, but Harper pivoted swiftly, steering the conversation back to potential investment. The tension was subtle but relentless. As evening shadows lengthened, Evelyn noticed Lucas's restless gaze and the slump of his shoulders. Harper seemed to revel in controlling the conversation, referencing overdue loans and a grand future, if only the right partner stepped in. When they parted for the night, Evelyn felt uneasy, aware that something behind Harper's charm felt contrived. Outside Scout sniffed at the RV's tires, ears perked as if detecting a hidden threat. Evelyn patted her loyal dog silently, promising herself she'd keep her eyes open for what might unfold next. They took supper in the RV's kitchenette, where Harper's polished sales pitch continued, disposable plates masquerading as fine china, meticulously laid out napkins. Everything felt like a staged performance. Between bites of reheated pasta, Harper outlined her vision, combining an RV-based rental concept with some sort of traveling work. She insisted it could solve their financial woes, urging Evelyn to think of it as a generational investment. Lucas said little, merely wincing whenever the subject of debt resurfaced. Evelyn tried to ease the tension by recalling simpler times, how Lucas had once insisted on paying off a small library fine as a boy refusing her help. He'd always had a moral streak, but something in him now seemed beaten down. Each time Evelyn looked at him, he averted his eyes. Harper brought up looming deadlines for unpaid loans, implying that if Evelyn truly cared, she'd help. Evelyn's gut churned. She appreciated ambition, but sensed an ulterior motive pulsing beneath Harper's perfect smile. Scout, lying beneath the table, let out a subtle whine whenever Harper's tone hardened. The RV's overhead light buzzed and the night air thickened with unspoken threats and forced cheer. When the meal ended, Evelyn felt mentally exhausted. She excused herself to get some air, stepping outside, where the stars shimmered over the dark silhouette of Snake Spine Pass. The hush reminded her how quickly life's course could change in these mountains. One slip of the brakes and tragedy could follow. Returning to the cabin, she tried to settle her thoughts, yet a gnawing worry persisted. Her intuition, honed from years of tending emergencies, urged her to stay vigilant. She still prayed her son's arrival would be a second chance at family closeness, not a path to heartbreak. But her instincts whispered that something about Harper's intentions spelled danger, a danger that might soon converge with Silver Ridge's perilous roads. Near midnight, the cabin slept, but Evelyn found herself awake, mind churning. She looked out at the RV parked outside. A small light glowed within, prompting her to approach stealthily. Pressing an ear against its metal side, she caught hushed voices. Her heart hammered. She recognized Harper's voice first. "We'll cut the rear brake line tomorrow. Make it look like normal wear downhill," she whispered. Evelyn's pulse thundered. Lucas's softer tone responded, "Mom deserves better." His words were fraught with regret. Harper's hissed retort cut like a blade. "We deserve a future, and she's in the way." Inside the RV, Lucas felt cornered, trapped by fear. He recalled better days, his mother teaching him the difference between right and wrong. Yet the memory collided with urgent financial threats, gambling debts, mortgage notices, Harper's constant demands to fix their dire situation. The plan seemed monstrous, but he felt powerless. Outside, Evelyn's mouth went dry. She forced herself not to burst in. Confrontation could push them to act faster or more violently. She slipped away on trembling legs, mind spinning with alarm. Could her own son be complicit in a scheme to kill her? Lucas, left alone after Harper's final instructions, wept softly in the driver's seat. Scout gently nudged his hand, offering silent comfort. Waves of guilt roiled in Lucas's gut. He feared what tomorrow might bring, yet felt helpless to break free from the web he'd woven with Harper. If he defied her now, The avalanche of debt would consume them both, or so he believed. Darkness pressed in, matching the dread in his mind. Back in her bedroom, Evelyn stared at the ceiling, every nerve alert. She needed a plan to protect herself and perhaps protect Lucas from himself. Dawn felt distant, but she knew that once the sun rose, she had to act swiftly or risk losing everything to Harper's malicious design. Lucas stayed awake long after Harper drifted to sleep. The RV's darkness was thick, broken only by the faint glow of his phone screen. Bill's credit card notices and gambling debt reminders flooded him, each one a dagger to his conscience. He scrolled through them, tears blurring the text. Every time he imagined calling it off, Harper's voice rang in his head. "We can't fail now." Scout's soft presence near his legs reminded him of a purer kind of loyalty he'd once known, like Evelyn's unconditional love for him when he was younger. He remembered the day she'd helped him fix an old go-kart, how proud she was of his determination. Now, ironically, he was helping sabotage the very machine meant to keep her safe on a dangerous descent. He placed the phone aside, burying his face in his hands. The shame felt suffocating. He'd allowed debts to spiral, let Harper's persuasion overshadow his moral compass. The scheme to collect insurance, disguising murder as an accident, hovered on the brink of real action. Each heartbeat hammered home the truth: he was about to aid in killing his mother. Tortured by regret, he whispered, "I'm sorry," not sure if he meant it for Scout, for his mother, or for himself. Fear and desperation waged war in his chest. At that moment, he vowed if an opportunity to spare Evelyn came, he'd seize it. But the question was whether he'd find the courage. Numbness eventually took him, and he dozed off into troubled sleep, haunted by guilt-laden dreams of brakes failing on a winding cliff. When morning came, he had no solutions, only the echo of Harriet's plan swirling in his mind. The RV loomed like a specter of doom outside its polished sides, reflecting a distorted image of his face. He realized he was on the precipice of an irrevocable act. Evelyn rose before dawn, adrenaline fueling her. She made her way to Jack Grizzly Evans's property. The porch light was on, and he answered in a single rap on the door. She relayed the late-night eavesdropping in a hushed, trembling voice. Jack's expression remained stony but fierce, the face of a soldier confronted with a threat. He led her to his den walls lined with tactical gear from his Marine days. Handing her a lipstick-sized body cam, he explained how to use it discreetly. "Clip it somewhere, keep it rolling," he said, placing a weatherproof satellite phone beside it. "Reception is bad near Snake Spine. Call me if you can't reach 911. Outside, the first gray light of dawn illuminated the pines. Evelyn felt a trembling relief, grateful for Jack's willingness to intervene. He promised to follow at a distance in his pickup, towing gear that might help if things went awry. A silent vow passed between them. They'd keep her safe and, if possible, save Lucas from going over the edge, literally or morally. Evelyn returned to her cabin, body cam concealed in her jacket. Scout met her at the door, tail wagging with subdued eagerness. "It's all right, boy," she murmured, though she wasn't certain if Harper intended to cut the brakes. The upcoming family trip threatened to become a murder. Gently, she bent to scratch Scout behind the ears, steadying her nerves. She spotted the RV out the window, the silhouette of Harper inside, rummaging for something. A sense of dread weighed on her, but a spark of resolve flickered. She had faced emergencies before. She'd rely on caution, cunning, and Jack's backup. Glancing at the phone again, she felt a surge of determination. She refused to be a victim. She'd be ready for whatever dark turn Harper engineered on Snake Spine Pass. Harper's chosen mechanic, a gaunt man with grease-blackened hands, slid under the RV in a dimly lit auto shop. Lucas stood by, stomach in knots, as the man cut the rear brake line with unnerving ease. Harper hovered all business, pressing a wad of cash into the man's hand. The overhead fluorescent flickered, casting dancing shadows on the floor. "You'll still have some front brake," the mechanic told Harper. But if you're going downhill fast, he trailed off, letting the implication speak for itself. Lucas felt a surge of sickness. This was no longer abstract. It was real and irreversible. He recalled how Evelyn had once told him to trust his inner voice when something felt wrong. Now that voice screamed at him to stop. Yet he couldn't muster the courage to speak against Harper. Sweat beaded on Lucas's brow as they left the shop. In the driver's seat, he pressed the pedal experimentally. Already the brakes felt spongy. Harper, as if reading his doubts, placed a hand on his arm. "We're so close," she murmured, a chilling light in her eyes. "Just think, no more debt collectors calling at dawn. No more overdue notices. We'll both be free." Instead of feeling relief, Lucas felt like his soul was being sold for scrap. He imagined the RV hurtling down Snake Spine's steep grade, the monstrous drop-offs. The mental image of Evelyn's face terrified. Trusting him flooded his thoughts. For a moment, he wondered if he might sabotage the sabotage. But Harper's warning glare remained any betrayal, and he might lose more than money. With the sabotage set, they drove back to Evelyn's property. The sun was dipping low, painting the pines with gold. Lucas parked, stepping out on shaky legs. In the growing dusk, he spotted Jack's truck by the distant tree line, a silent sentinel. It unnerved him, but also, in some corner of his conscience, it offered a fragile hope. Night fell uneasily. Lucas emerged from the RV to check on Scout, only to find the leash severed. The dog was gone. "Panic flared, Scout," he called into the hush. Evelyn rushed out, eyes wide with worry, shining a flashlight into the woods. Harper hovered her mouth, set in a thin line. "Maybe the dog got loose," she said with a shrug, but the glint in her eyes hinted at something more. They combed the area in vain. Hearts pounding, Evelyn returned to her cabin, fear etched on her face. Lucas paced, guilt gnawing him. Had Harper cut the leash to ensure the dog couldn't interfere? Or was the mechanic involved? It felt like every loyal presence in his life was being stripped away. The night stretched with a nerve-wracking quiet. Sometime before dawn, a faint whimper sounded outside the RV door. Lucas jumped up, opening it to find Scout limping toward him, fur matted with grease, the sharp scent of brake fluid clinging to his coat. Relief and horror mixed in Lucas's chest. The dog's loyalty had led him to the sabotage under the RV or near the mechanic's workshop. Scout's eyes held that unwavering trust, and Lucas felt the crush of betrayal for even considering letting harm befall Evelyn. Evelyn appeared, dropping to her knees beside Scout, examining a small gash on his leg. Harper stood a few steps away, face unreadable. "He's back," she said blandly, then turned, heading inside. Lucas stroked Scout's fur, heart hammering. In that moment, he almost confessed everything to his mother, but fear of Harper's next move held him back. By sunrise, Scout was safe in Evelyn's care, cleaned up and bandaged, but the dog's return only underscored the sinister nature of what lurked beneath. Lucas felt dread burrowing deeper. If Harper was willing to remove any obstacle, whether it was a dog or a person, would she stop at nothing? While Scout rested, Evelyn activated the body cam footage. She watched Harper crush white pills into a powder, funneling them into what appeared to be water bottle ice cubes. The camera's angle wasn't perfect, but it captured enough. The methodical swirl of the powder, Harper's tense glance around to ensure no one was watching. It was a chilling sight. Evelyn's breath quickened. This wasn't just about brake tampering. Harper intended to drug her, ensuring she'd be too groggy or unconscious to react if the RV careened on Snake Spine's descent, holding the camera. Evelyn trembled at the cold-blooded nature of it all. Her chest tightened with anger and grief. How did her family reach a point where her own daughter-in-law plotted her death? She quickly contacted Detective Miriam Barnes from Sierra County, using Jack's satellite phone to avoid spotty coverage. Barnes, known for her calm decisiveness, listened attentively. With a promise of discreet action, the detective directed Evelyn to send the footage. Jack helped upload the files. The detective's tone on the call reflected urgency and quiet resolve, vowing to station an unmarked vehicle near Snake Spine's exit if a trip was indeed happening soon. After ensuring the files were securely transferred, Evelyn took a shaky breath. She had evidence enough to warrant police intervention, but she sensed that Harper's plan was already in motion, and any abrupt confrontation might trigger a lethal reaction sooner. Glancing outside, she saw Lucas sitting on a stump, staring at the dust dancing in a sunbeam. She wondered if he could still be saved from Harper's ruthless influence. A pang of maternal love tugged at her. Despite his complicity, she saw a frightened man, not a monster. Jack, always methodical, gathered supplies in his pickup. He set a toe strap and first aid gear in the bed, prepared to trail them. Evelyn prayed the official backup, plus Jack's watchful eye, would be enough. Snake Spine. Pass was unforgiving. One misstep and any plan, sinister or otherwise, could end in tragedy. Determined to check the RV's condition, Lucas drove alone on a short test run. He eased onto a less steep section of road, pressing the brake pedal. It sank dangerously, forcing him to pump it twice to slow. A dash light flickered a warning. Panic enveloped him. Memories flooded in childhood trips. His mother calmly steering through heavy rain, teaching him not to panic. She had always been his moral compass, and now he was letting Harper sabotage that precious bond. He pulled onto a gravel shoulder. Breath-ragged, the RV rattled as if echoing his guilt. In a swirl of self-loathing, he slammed a fist against the steering wheel. A glance in the rearview mirror revealed the haunted look in his own eyes. Could he truly go through with this? If he refused, how would he crawl out of the financial hole he was in? Outside, the pines stood silent. The mechanical hum of the RV stilled, leaving only the whisper of wind. Lucas contemplated driving to a different mechanic to fix the line, but the cost and the time were daunting. He recalled Harper's scathing threats. If he backed out, debt had become a noose, and each passing hour tightened the rope. As he started the engine again, he thought of Scout's unwavering loyalty. The dog had no cynicism, just devotion. If only Lucas could channel that loyalty for his mother's sake. Clutching the wheel, he told himself that if a final moment came where he could choose life over betrayal, he'd do it. But still, fear held him captive. Returning home, he found Harper checking their departure date, pushing for Friday. Lucas forced a nod. Stomach twisting, the road to Snake Spine beckoned like a beckoning precipice, a place of no return. He couldn't fight the sense that time was slipping through his fingers, dragging him closer to a moral abyss. Friday morning arrived too soon, carrying a suffocating tension. Harper, unstoppable in her orchestrations, insisted on leaving by noon. She faked a bright enthusiasm, filming small clips around the RV. "We can't wait to show off the scenic pass." Lucas tensed behind the wheel. Managed a forced smile. Evelyn quietly prepared, tucking the body cam under her blouse and testing the satellite phone one last time. Detective Barnes and an undercover team stationed themselves near Snake Spine's exit. Jack and his battered pickup lingered behind them, loaded with gear. The plan was to intervene if anything went awry. Yet Evelyn knew it might come down to a split second on the actual descent. Harper eyed Evelyn with a faux warm smile. "Ready for a real adventure?" she asked, offering a special water bottle that Evelyn discreetly refused. Lucas overheard frowning but said nothing. Outside, Scout hopped onto the RV's front floor, uncharacteristically quiet. Perhaps he sensed the dangerous energy in the air. Finally, they pulled away from Evelyn's cabin. She cast a long glance at the place she'd called home for decades. The road out was smooth at first, weaving past familiar pines. Jack's pickup followed at a considerable distance, barely visible. Lucas checked the mirrors, often seemingly aware of the silent escort. Harper kept up her vlog routine, praising the opportunities in this new venture. though beneath the camera smile lurked an edge of impatience, passing a roadside sign for Snake Spine. Past Evelyn's heart fluttered. The dreaded stretch was just miles away. She squared her shoulders, remembering her training as a trauma nurse. Stay calm, focused, ready to act. She trusted that if Lucas still had a shred of conscience, he might refuse the final kill. But if not, she'd have to rely on Jack the detective or her own wits to survive. Partway into the journey, Harper grabbed her phone to record a family vlog. She panned the camera across the interior, Lucas at the wheel, Evelyn seated behind him, and Scout, lying watchful on the floor. Smiling wide, she spoke about adventuring together, though her words rang hollow to Evelyn, who recognized the rehearsed glee. Outside towering pines gave way to craggy overlooks. The altitude rose with each mile, and the temperature dipped. Evelyn glanced through a side window, glimpsing the winding highway. She mentally counted the switchbacks she knew lay ahead, each a lethal risk. If the brakes failed, the RV's engine, already taxed by the uphill climb, groaned steadily. Harper ended her video clip, urging Lucas to exclaim how excited he was. He managed a short, trembling smile. Evelyn wondered if he might break under the pressure before they even reached the pass. She kept the camera lens angled from her blouse, capturing each forced grin and telling glance. They stopped briefly at a turnout for a scenic shot. Harper hopped out, selfie stick in hand, narrating the panoramic view. Evelyn followed, letting the crisp air clear her head. Far below, the road snaked like a dark ribbon. She almost felt vertigo picturing how easily a vehicle could slip off those edges. Returning to the RV, she exchanged a quiet look with Lucas. She could read the torment there as they eased back onto the highway. Scout let out a low, uneasy growl, as though sensing the rising stakes. The sun near its zenith cast bright angles across the pass. Evelyn felt her pulse quicken, each heartbeat drumming a warning. The real descent would start soon. A heaviness settled, and she braced herself, uncertain whether Lucas would find the resolve to protect her, or if the plan would proceed with deadly inevitability. Lucas's heart hammered as the RV approached the highest stretch, the engine straining on a steep grade. He couldn't block out the squeal of the brakes each time he tapped the pedal. Suddenly he confessed, voice taut with fear. "Brakes feel soft." Harper shot him a look, half panic, half anger, but she forced a performance for the camera, telling him calmly, "We'll manage." As soon as Harper stopped recording, she hissed, "Don't deviate." Her threat was a vice around Lucas's chest. He recalled losing money at the casino last year, the downward spiral of payday loans, and how Harper had cornered him with a twisted plan, rid themselves of Evelyn, collect insurance, and start anew. Yet he couldn't ignore the ghost of simpler times, a childhood flash of his mother encouraging him after a scraped knee. They reached a flat vantage point near the ridge's crest. Lucas's hands shook on the steering wheel. Scout whined softly, picking up the tension. Evelyn kept quiet, eyes on Lucas, with an unwavering gaze that seemed to say, "I see you. I know you can do better." He swallowed hard, voice catching in his throat as he told Harper, "I'm not sure about this." Her eyes flared. "We have no choice. Don't ruin everything." She rubbed her abdomen as though the fake pregnancy gave her moral cover. The lie spurred Lucas's sense of entrapment. He had to pretend that for the sake of a child that might not even be real, this act was justified. They resumed the drive, cresting the top. The road sign loomed, Snake Spine, past 6% grade next 6 miles. A swirl of dread enveloped Lucas. With each passing second, he neared the point of no return. He prayed silently that he'd find a final spark of courage, that he'd prevent the catastrophe. Yet Harper's menacing presence told him any attempt to defy her would be met with fury. At a scenic overlook, Harper insisted on a picnic lunch, pulling out sandwiches and a pitcher of lemonade. Evelyn recognized the potential for drugging, spotting the slightly murky ice cubes. She pretended to take a sip, fighting to keep her expression neutral. The sky overhead was dazzlingly clear, the mountain air almost sweet, yet the tension twisted everything sour. Lucas took a seat on a foldable camp stool, gaze flitting between Harper and Evelyn. He barely drank, focusing on the squeak of the RV as it cooled in the mild altitude. Scout lay by Evelyn's feet, muzzle on his paws, watchful. During the forced chatter, Harper poured on false warmth, describing how they'd soon descend the scenic route for some travel footage. Evelyn, quietly refusing to ingest much of the lemonade, forced polite nods. She caught Lucas's haunted expression as he stared at the winding road below. This vantage point offered a direct view of the serpentine highway. If the rear brakes had truly been cut, controlling the RV on those hairpin curves was nearly impossible. Her stomach churned at the thought. She recalled the detective's unmarked SUV waiting near the pass's exit, but that might be too far to help if the worst happened midway. Harper, noticing Evelyn's subdued manner, tried to coax her with more lemonade. "You'll need hydration on the ride," she said in a deceptively soothing tone. Evelyn faked a sip, hoping the body cam recorded Harper's pushiness. Scout stood tail wagging stiffly, sensing his owner's unease. As they cleaned up, an uneasy hush settled. Lucas checked the brake pedal discreetly. Face grim, Harper gathered her camera gear. Soon they reboarded the RV. Inside, the air felt thick with dread. Evelyn adjusted her seatbelt. The next stretch would be the real test. Downward slopes, sheer cliffs, and a manufactured brake failure waiting to strike. If you're still with me on this tense journey, please consider commenting or subscribing. Hearing your thoughts drives me to keep weaving this suspenseful tale. The RV rumbled over the ridge's peak and began its steady descent. Lucas's palms sweated on the wheel. Every so often, he pressed the brake, feeling the pedals sink alarmingly low. The stench of overheated pads soon seeped in. A blinking dash light signaled a brake system. Fault piercing Lucas's remaining hope, Harper feigned panic for her camera. "What's happening?" she exclaimed, but the camera's lens couldn't hide her contrived shock. Evelyn gripped her seat, quietly observing the interplay between them. Scout whined, ears laid back as the vehicle lurched. Lucas's mind spun with dual pressures. Do nothing and let the sabotage claim his mother, or risk defying Harper. A swirl of childhood memories attacked him, baking cookies with his mother, learning to drive in a vacant lot, as she calmly instructed him to stay cool under pressure. That memory clashed with the reality that Harper expected him to steer them to a fatal plunge. He felt tears gather. The first significant switchback loomed, a terrifying curve, hugging the cliffside. For a heartbeat, Lucas froze, foot pumping the brake to little effect. The engine brake helped, but not enough. At the last second, he turned the wheel with a strangled cry. The RV's rear swung tires screeching. The guardrail loomed inches away, the drop beyond immeasurable. They made it around speed, dropping temporarily to a safer range. Lucas's breath came in shallow gulps. He glimpsed the mirror behind them at a great distance. Was Jack's pickup hazard lights flashing? But the main question remained: would help reach them in time, or would Harper sabotage them further? As they continued the descent, the sense of inevitability thickened. Another turn, another near miss? Harper cast him pointed glares anytime he tried to slow too much. It was clear she wanted a convincing accident, but Lucas realized more and more he couldn't deliver his mother to her death. The moral break inside him was near, even if it meant risking Harper's wrath, and whatever debt still crushed him. Speed climbed again from 40 to 50 as they hit the next hairpin curve. A sign warned of a sharp turn, but the barely functional brakes offered little relief. The RV lurched heavily, threatening to cross the center line. Oncoming traffic was scarce, but it only took one wrong swerve to meet a fatal drop. Scout barked wildly, nails scrabbling for purchase on the RV's slick flooring. Evelyn's gaze flicked from the window to Lucas, her face set in calm determination. Meanwhile, Harper cradled the camera, though her composure cracked as the reality of losing control sank in. The smell of burning pads intensified a tangible sign of mechanical failure. Lucas's jaw tightened. He spun the wheel, fighting the RV's momentum. Metal squealed as they brushed a guardrail. Sparks danced too close to open air. The back end swung perilously near the cliff's edge before snapping forward again onto the pavement. Time seemed to stretch. The adrenaline hammered in every occupant. Lucas's mind conjured images of funeral bills, official crash reports, his mother's name on a headstone, but in those nightmares his own guilt weighed heavier. He felt a surge of resolve. Even if he didn't know how he'd fix the debt, he couldn't go through with murder. He refused to become what Harper demanded. They managed to straighten out after the turn, but the RV's speed was still rising. The next sign indicated an emergency escape ramp ahead. Lucas saw it out of the corner of his eye, an angled lane filled with deep gravel, a last chance for runaway trucks, maybe for a runaway conscience too. He swallowed hard, heart pounding. One more curve and he'd have to make a choice that might define the rest of his life. Speeding at 65, the RV rattled like a tin can. Harper reached for the parking brake handle, likely aiming for a violent flip if Lucas refused the accident scenario. He snarled, "No," and shoved her hand away. The RV wobbled, nearly tipping from the sudden shift of weight. Evelyn's knuckles were white, but her expression showed unwavering trust in Lucas's final choice. Lucas's internal war peaked. He remembered the casino's neon lights, the bottomless pit of debts, Harper's endless manipulations. Yet overshadowing all of that was the memory of Evelyn's quiet love, helping him through heartbreaks, always believing he could choose better. He let out a strangled cry, gripping the wheel as if it were a lifeline. Harper shrieked, "You coward! You think we can just magically fix our life?" She lunged again for the brake. Lucas elbowed her, all illusions of civility gone. His chest burned with panic sweat pouring down his face. The RV lurched from side to side, tires screaming against the unforgiving asphalt. They sped toward a sign that read, "Emergency Escape Ramp, Maimansaf Mile." Lucas's heart soared with sudden clarity. He would not condemn his mother. He'd rather face legal consequences, the wrath of collectors, anything but watch Evelyn die. Foot jammed on the useless brake pedal. He jerked the steering wheel, ignoring Harper's final curses. Dust billowed as the RV skidded onto the shoulder. The flicker in the side mirror showed headlights, Jack's truck, or an unmarked police car. There was no turning back now. Lucas braced himself, ignoring Harper's fist pounding his arm, focusing only on that gravel ramp that might be their salvation. The final sign flashed past. Lucas yelled, "Hang on," with every shred of his voice. The RV lurched right off the main highway and onto the sand escape ramp. Loose gravel exploded beneath the tires, creating a cloud that swallowed them. The engine roared in protest, but speed dropped rapidly as the wheels churned through thick sand. Harper's fury was drowned out by the thunderous rattle. She tried once more to grab the parking brake, but Lucas shoved her arm aside. Evelyn clung to her seat, Scout barking frantically. The entire cabin shuddered each second, feeling like a toss between life and death. The overhead compartments rattled, flinging loose items around. Then came the final jolt. The RV ground to a halt, partially buried in the gravel. Airbags deployed with a muted pop, slamming Lucas's face and chest. Dust filled the interior, choking them in a haze. For a breathless moment, silence followed. Only the ticking of the overheated engine and the panting of terrified occupants broke the quiet. Lucas felt tears hot on his cheeks. He'd done it. He'd chosen to save his mother. The debt, the scheme, none of it was worth a life. Harper coughed, still pinned by her seatbelt. She glared at Lucas, hate radiating. He glimpsed the raw fear in her eyes. Her murderous plan undone. Outside, a flurry of activity approached. Through the dusty windshield, Jack's pickup and an unmarked Tahoe screeched to a stop. Detective Miriam Barnes and two deputies leaped out, guns drawn in cautious stance. A wave of shattered relief coursed through Lucas. He slumped in the seat, adrenaline draining. Evelyn was alive, the RV battered but intact. Lucas coughed, peeling the deflated airbag away. His arms shook, and when he reached for the door, it resisted, jammed by twisted metal. He forced it open, stumbling into the ankle-deep gravel. Harper unbuckled herself behind him, screaming accusations. He ruined everything, she shrieked, lunging with desperation. Lucas turned just in time to deflect a wild swing of her fist. Evelyn emerged next, guided by Jack's steady grip. She stumbled, disoriented by the rough stop, but her eyes found Lucas's. He saw sorrow and relief intertwined there, tears brimming. He wanted to apologize, to beg her forgiveness, but words failed him. Scout tumbled out behind Evelyn, snarling protectively at Harper's flailing. Detective Barnes rushed in, voice steady and commanding. Hands where we can see them. Harper, still hysterical, tried to bolt around the side of the RV, but tripped the gravel, betraying her. A deputy tackled her, slapping cuffs on as she hurled insults. Another deputy gently restrained Lucas, though he offered no resistance. Amid the chaos, Lucas felt a surge of shame. He had nearly been complicit in a murder, yet a thread of relief wound through him. He gazed at Evelyn, who braced herself against the RV, hand pressed to her chest. The hidden camera in her blouse might have recorded every damning second. He closed his eyes, tears slipping free. He deserved whatever judgment came next. Jack helped steady Evelyn, a silent, protective presence. The scuffle ended with Harper pinned in the gravel, screaming about the future she'd lost. Lucas, throat tight, realized he was trembling uncontrollably. He wiped sweat and dust from his face, stepping aside as the detective turned to him. Harper refused to go quietly. Despite being cuffed, she wrenched herself free from a deputy's grasp, scooping up a tire iron from the RV's open compartment. "Don't touch me," she snarled, eyes lit with wild hatred. "I won't let you throw my life away." She swung the iron, narrowly missing a deputy's shoulder. Evelyn gasped, stepping back. Scout lunged, barking frenetically. Harper raised the tire iron again, aiming at Evelyn. But Jack and the deputy closed in, tackling her hard into the sand. The iron clanked onto gravel. Scout bared his teeth, a fierce protective growl rumbling. The dust swirled, adding to the sense of confusion. Detective Barnes pinned Harper's legs, while the deputy reapplied the cuffs, double-locking them. This time Harper thrashed, screaming about conspiracies, about Lucas's weakness, about how they deserved better. Her words rang hollow as the adrenaline-laced madness drained from her. Onlookers watched with grim faces. Evelyn stood back, heart-pounding, tears gathering. She wanted to feel pity for Harper's desperation, but the woman had plotted murder, tried to kill her, nearly harming Lucas as well. Jack gently placed a protective arm around Evelyn's shoulders. "It's over," he said quietly. "You're safe." As the deputies led Harper toward the Tahoe, Lucas slumped onto a rock, burying his face in his hands. The swirl of guilt and relief overwhelmed him. He felt Detective Barnes approach and kneel beside him. "We'll need a full statement," she said, voice calm. Lucas nodded numbly, shoulders shaking. He'd chosen to save his mother, but the horror of the plan he once agreed to weighed on him like a lead blanket. In the aftermath, the emergency ramp served as an impromptu crime scene. Deputies photographed the slashed brake line, the bizarre debris strewn inside. Barnes examined the RV's dashcam footage, which captured the sabotage unfolding, the brake failure. Harper's manipulations, Lucas's last-second swerve into the ramp. Meanwhile, Evelyn discreetly handed over the body cam that showed Harper grinding pills, doping the water, and plotting the catastrophic accident. Lucas trembled, scrolling through voice memos on his phone. He turned them over to Barnes. Recorded confessions of his regret, messages from Harper threatening him if he backed out. Each snippet painted a picture of premeditated murder disguised as an insurance grab. Barnes's eyes hardened as she listened. It was open and shut. When medics arrived to check everyone, Lucas couldn't meet his mother's gaze. He whispered, "I almost killed you," tears escaping. Evelyn's heart twisted. Though he'd betrayed her trust, he'd also saved her life at the final moment. She stepped closer, shaky but firm, resting a hand on his shoulder. "I'm alive because you found the strength to stop," she said. Jack shared a silent nod with Detective Barnes, who signaled her team to process Harper's arrest for attempted murder and insurance fraud. The roar of wind across the pass slowly subsided. Snake Spine's imposing cliffs, once the stage for a planned tragedy, now stood as silent witnesses to a partial redemption. This has been a harrowing moment. If you appreciate the intensity, consider subscribing or commenting with your thoughts. Your input matters and fuels more storytelling. Months later, the Sierra County Courthouse buzzed with curiosity over the RV. Brake sabotage case. Harper Grant stood before the judge in prison attire, no longer the polished, charming figure she once projected. The prosecution laid out the evidence meticulously: dash cam recordings, sabotage details, and the hidden camera footage of her drugging plan. The mechanic who aided her had also confessed. Evelyn sat in the gallery, heart heavy yet resolute. Lucas sat beside her, pale with guilt. He had cooperated fully, handing over voice memos and texts that revealed Harper's relentless manipulation. The judge pronounced a 20-year sentence for Harper's attempted murder and insurance fraud. She glared at Lucas and Evelyn once more before being led away, face twisted with bitterness. Lucas's own sentencing followed. While he was complicit, the court acknowledged that he ultimately prevented the murder at great personal risk. Detective Barnes testified on his behalf, citing recordings that showed his mounting regret. The judge handed down a 5-year suspended sentence, plus 2,000 hours of community service in an EMT training program. Lucas showed no joy, merely bowing his head in relief. It was a second chance, but one he knew he'd have to earn. Outside reporters snapped photos, shouting questions. Jack stood near his pickup waiting. Evelyn guided Lucas past the media swarm, ignoring the flashbulbs. The California sun glared off the courthouse steps, a reminder that the law had done its part, but the emotional toll would linger. She squeezed Lucas's hand. Neither spoke, but in that gesture lay a quiet understanding. The path to healing would be long. They'd take it one step at a time. Jack gave a curt nod of solidarity. Justice might be served, but scars remained, and in Snake Spine's towering shadow, new beginnings had to be carefully nurtured. Months passed. Evelyn sat by her fireplace, a stack of letters in hand. Each envelope bore Lucas's uneven handwriting, postmarked from his EMT training site. She opened them carefully, reading of his daily routines, late-night ambulance shifts, studying emergency protocols, glimpses of panic as he confronted real emergencies. Interwoven through these updates were quiet apologies. "I'm sorry, Mom," he wrote. "I want to be better. I still don't sleep well thinking about what might have happened, but I'm learning to help people. It feels right." Evelyn felt a flood of both sorrow and hope. She remembered his childhood warmth, a boy eager to help neighbors shovel snow. That spark of goodness was still there. In her replies, she spoke gently but honestly. "I can't pretend everything is fine, but I see your effort and I believe in second chances. You saved my life by steering onto that ramp. Keep building on that." Sometimes she read and reread his letters, tears slipping down her cheeks. Loving a child who nearly harmed her was a complicated weight, but her heart still yearned for his redemption. Scout often lay at her feet, wagging his tail whenever she reached for a new letter. Outside, Silver Ridge glowed with seasonal shifts. New buds in spring, crisp wind in fall. Life moved forward. She sometimes woke from nightmares of careening over a cliff, only to remember she'd survived. Each day was another stitch in the process of healing. She set the letters aside, exhaling. Her home felt quieter without Lucas, but she found solace in the notion he was learning to save lives. Perhaps that was the best atonement. In the lull of the fire's crackling, she tucked the letters into a drawer, silently praying that one day they'd find a steady peace. In the dim glow of twilight, Jack Grizzly Evans concluded a road hazard survival workshop in the community center's parking lot. Orange cones dotted the asphalt, and a small camper was used for practice. Evelyn, volunteering as a model driver, demonstrated how to test brakes and check fluid levels, a new awareness she took seriously after her harrowing experience. A small group of retirees murmured thanks, dispersing. Jack nodded in approval, packing away his visual aids. Evelyn leaned on the camper's door, watching as Scout chased a stray pine cone. The dog's energetic yaps seemed to echo the renewed sense of life after darkness. The massive shadow of Snake Spine Pass loomed in the distance, its silhouette against a deepening sky. Evelyn felt a pang in her chest, remembering how close she'd come to tragedy there. She turned to Jack, who read her expression. He offered a subtle nod. "You made it," he said softly. Still behind the wheel. She climbed into the camper, adjusting the seat. It was far smaller than the monstrous RV that almost ended her shifting gears. She guided it around the cones, her movements calm and assured. Scout jumped in, settling on the passenger seat. Looking through the windshield, she saw the high ridge and the last orange rays of sunset. The scene struck her as symbolic and imposing challenge, overshadowed by the day's fading light, yet she'd emerged with her life, her son's partial redemption and a deeper resilience. Parked again, she shut off the engine. A gentle hush blanketed the lot. "I'm still driving," she thought. "I still have a choice." As she stepped out, the breeze carried the cool scent of pine, a testament to survival and second chances. She smiled at Jack, then turned to watch the final glow over Snake Spine. Though the road was winding and fraught, she would face it no longer alone and no longer afraid. The fire still burns, but our time together draws to a close. In those final seconds on Snake Spine Pass, we witnessed how quickly life's road can turn, how a mother's love faced the ultimate test against betrayal. What moment stayed with you? Was it when Lucas cut the brake lines, when Evelyn realized the truth, or that split-second choice that saved them both but changed everything? This is why I share these stories, to remind us that redemption often comes at the highest price paid in moments that define us forever. If Evelyn and Lucas's journey touched you today, subscribe to become part of our Fireside family. Your voice matters here. Tell me in the comments if you believe Lucas deserved forgiveness, and share where you're listening from. I'm Clara, keeper of the flame, at her Fireside Stories, where even the darkest tales illuminate truth. Until we meet again, remember, someone's waiting for you to make the right choice too.